And we are live. All right, go ahead.
All right. Hey, everyone. This is Christina from Maniac Company. And that's
Hey guys,
Alexis.
Alexis from Rudee Tours.
It's like the Brady Bunch. I can point at you. Today we are, so first of all, we have kind of branded ourselves as the Rudee Maniacs. We have joined forces, Rudee Tours and the Maniac. And while we're here in quarantine, we thought we would put together these little presentations for y'all for your education, entertainment, and just something to do. So first of all, we are going to talk about our winter wildlife wonders here off the coast of Virginia, but we wanted to give you all a little background on who we are and why we know the things that we know. Alexis, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I have been in Virginia Beach for about 15 years, and I've actually been studying and working with marine animals and helping to protect marine life for over 11 now. So marine mammals are kind of my forte, but I have had a lot of awesome experiences to be able to learn a lot about other marine life in the area. So particularly the mid-Atlantic, that's kind of my section. I do travel all kinds of places, particularly for their marine life. So I'm a really big nerd with that. So I get a chance to learn a lot of things in addition to that as well. And that's actually how Christina and I met. I've known Christina for about 11 years too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we both worked for the Virginia Aquarium for a period of time. I was on the stranding response team, which means for about 12 years, I helped rescue or study, research marine mammals and sea turtles off the coast of Virginia. That's kind of actually how I got into marine debris. Now, I was more of a sea turtle person, still am, but I did love working with the marine mammals. They're very interesting. And just a little tidbit of fun information. I started volunteering in 1997 with the aquarium on the whale watch boats. That's how I got sucked in. My first trip, we saw 2 fin whales. So I was done. I had a degree in business management, and I just did a complete 180 and went, oh, look at whales. I think I want to do this instead.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so hi, Martha. So we're going to focus on what the Rudee Tours boats saw this winter. Alexis is going to kind of run through this little slideshow of some of the critters we've seen out there. But first, Alexis, I wanted to, because I know there's some concern about whale watch boats and crowding whales and things like that. Would you mind giving a brief overview of the whale watch guidelines that you follow?
Yes, definitely. So with Rudee Tours, we are committed to protecting the animals and their homes. And one of the best ways that we can showcase that is by setting the standard on the water and making sure we comply with all responsible wildlife watching guidelines. You'll note that we mention that on each of our eco excursions. We do not approach the animals too closely. We do not want to change what they're doing in any way. You'll notice that our captains very carefully parallel the course of any animals that we're seeing. Don't try to approach them head on. We undergo a lot of additional training every year to make sure that we are on top of things. We're also a member of a voluntary recognition and education program that's called Whale Sense, that is sponsored by NOAA Fisheries and Whale and Dolphin Conservation. And that means that we undergo that yearly training to make sure that we know exactly what to do. And we do report any violations. So for our particular waters, it's recommended that you stay about 100 yards away from a large whale. So think about a football field. That's going to be a good guideline for that. But no intentional close approach within 100 feet. That is going to be much larger for the critically endangered North Atlantic right whale. You want to make sure that that distance is 500 yards, so 5 football fields. Mm-hmm. And then whenever you see those guys, you also have a whole series of folks that you have to contact as well because they are so protected, being critically endangered.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. I think that's what we wanted to cover before we got into these beautiful pictures. But since you mentioned the critically endangered right whale, tell us a little bit about that one. Did you see any this year?
We did not.
Hi, Jackie.
Jinxie said that together. We are We haven't. We haven't actually seen any of the right whales from any of the tour vessels in the area for about 12 years. They have been spotted by aerial surveys that we've worked with towards the eastern shore and a little bit further off. But for our area, we do have 4 different species of large whales that we can commonly see in our coastal waters. Humpbacks, which that'll be kind of the focus of some of the animals that we talk about today. Also fin whales, minke whales, and those critically endangered right whales. Right whales are estimated to have only just a little over 400 left in the entire population. So they're definitely a very big cause for concern. They were given the name right whales because they were the right whales to hunt back in the day. They had a lot of the oil that the whalers were looking for. They were very slow moving, and they also had very long baleen. That's another byproduct that was used. It caused their population to decline pretty dramatically, but a lot of things were put in place to help that recover. So we have seen an increase with that. But unfortunately, our experience is definitely looking forward to hopefully having kind of go up a little bit as well because of the additional protection that folks are putting out there. All right. Yeah, we are definitely working with local research and talking about identification and all of those processes, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in the slideshow.
Awesome. So there's some, and just the coolest thing for me about the right whale are the callosities. And I know we don't have any pictures, but if you Google kings and queens out there, if you look up the right whale and you look at images of the right whale, you'll see these really cool bumps on their heads, and they are. I'm
sorry, I'm having technical issues here.
Okay, yeah, the jets are flying too. It's loud.
Those are cynids, so whale lice, and I actually have had some of those before that we've gotten from a stranded whale, but you can see those kind of along that. I can actually post some photos a little bit later in the presentation, so check back online and I'll share that with you guys, some really close-up views of it. They're kind of creepy looking, but crazy cool too.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I'll let you get on to your humpbacks.
Okay. So humpbacks are kind of notorious for being very well known, very surface active and acrobatic. You can see this cutie that's right here on the main screen. It was a little squishy whale that we had a chance to see during one of our winter wildlife excursions. It was super surface active. It kept doing spot hops, these kind of lazy little half breaches, chin slaps. So it was a lot of fun to be able to see that. Gonna kind of go ahead and transition into one of our first whales that we saw this season. We nicknamed him as Fred. We do sometimes have nicknames for them internally so that when we see them chatting back and forth with each other, we can immediately kind of know who we're talking about. But this little whale was about 28, 30 feet in length. And we do see a lot of smaller whales in our area that are thought to be juvenile. So that's kind of a fun fact for folks if they don't know that. But this whale was repetitively doing a behavior that we call tail lopping. So kind of throwing that tail around. It did that for quite a while when we were viewing it. So it put on a great show for everyone.
Very cool.
Yes. I know, this is one of my favorite pictures too. We had this magical sunset moonrise trip that we did that if you had a chance to view it, I actually went live during it because it was so amazing. And we'll talk about that a couple more times throughout the presentation. But we did see this one individual humpback that breached quite a few times, and you really had a cool chance to see kind of the body shape with that as well. Best trips ever this past whale season. Yes, it was a really good whale season. About that. The next photo that it's going to go to shows you that same whale that was, again, putting on quite a show for everyone. If you get a close-up view of it, you can kind of see that it has a nice barnacle load right there on the chin. And we do see a lot of barnacles on the individuals, the chin for the humpbacks, as well as those tails.
Tell me more about the chin, because there's some pleats that I see. What is the function of that?
Yes. So are considered to be rorqual whales. So basically that's a fancy way of saying that they have super stretchy muscles in their throats that are going to allow them to expand to take in enormous quantities of water. So about a swimming pool worth. Those muscles inside kind of function like bungee cords, so they can really expand and contract. So they'll swim through the water, take in a huge gulp, they'll fill that throat full all the way down to about their belly button. It can expand that far, and then they'll actually use their tongue to push water out through their plates of baleen. That's what they use to filter those small food items out from the water while the food gets trapped on the inside. So they're a lot of fun to see. Typically we will have an opportunity to see a few lunge feed during a season, so you can see that kind of nice and filled out.
They're so cool.
They are. And this was a crazy cool shot. We actually had media on board for this trip, and we were pretty far into it, and I was getting a little bit nervous because I'm like, here we go. We're not going to be able to see anything. Spotted two whales a little bit further out, and both of them were repeats. This one I'll touch base on in just a few minutes as well. But this individual is known for being very surface active, and right when we got in a little bit closer view and had stopped the boat, all of a sudden, whee, nice spinning retreat. So everyone, when they come out, they want to see this, and that's definitely not something that we see very often, so we never take it for granted when we do.
Do we know why whales breach?
Yeah, there are a couple of schools of thought for it. Usually only the whale knows why it's doing it at that time. But one thought is that it's a form of communication for them. You have this 25, 40-ton animal jumping out of the water, smacking the surface. It's going to make a huge sound that other things can hear from above as well as below. How big is this whale? This individual is probably about 35, close to 40 feet. Again, it's one that we've seen for quite a while. Good question there. Another school of thought for why an animal breaches is that it's just kind of fun and a good way to use up energy. And also that it may be a way for them to scratch an itch or dislodge some parasites. Yeah. Whatever the reason, it's fun to see.
Absolutely.
And we've had a couple of questions about photo ID and research. So photo ID is one of the main research projects that we participate in. And this particular individual is one that within our catalog has a number, but we have been able to see it since 2017. So we will see it usually a couple of times each season. So that's definitely very exciting for that. And how we can identify them is by characteristics of the underside of the tail. So you can see with this individual, it's got some pretty distinctive markings. Usually what I look for when I'm looking for it is you'll see kind of along that bottom, our right-hand side, it's got kind of that black line that runs right across to the middle. And that's something that you can usually see from a good distance away. We also have dorsal fin images, because when we're seeing these whales, often they're in shallow waters and they don't have the depth of water to dive down. So we can identify them with those dorsal fins too. But we do collaborate with a lot of other local researchers in the area. You know, we're taking environmental data when we're seeing this. So what conditions, to try to learn more about that. What individuals we're seeing, what behaviors, and usually, you know, we're texting back and forth with any researchers that are out and definitely recapping with them weekly to make sure that we all have the same info.
Hillary's question about volunteering for this kind of research, is there something like that available in this area or really anywhere that you're aware of?
There are a lot of places that have volunteers that come on for photo identification. That's something that probably we will be starting up within Rudee Tours within the next few years. Kristen, my colleague, and I, we usually do most of the photo identification that's on board. But, you know, definitely as we continue to expand this, there's the Mid-Atlantic Humpback Whale catalog that's now web-based, so an online platform for that. And the more whales that we're having come in, the more we need to learn more about them. So potentially within our facility, we will have an opportunity for folks to maybe do an internship with us for bottlenose dolphin photo ID or whale ID, anything along those lines. You can also check in with yeah, I'm sorry.
Pick me.
You can also check in, you know, with organizations, some environmental organizations, and I know that we plan to touch base on those at some point to learn more about that too. Okay. Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate that question. What is the latest that you see whales in Virginia Beach? Well, the highest concentration, they're here in the winter, but we have seen and documented those large whales every single month of the year. So for last year in April and May, we had 5 solid weeks where we documented 6 different individual whales that came through. You know, even though they have designated migration patterns, you see some changes to that. They don't always follow the maps. They're going to follow the food. So we do see some changes.
Oh, and what do they eat? We didn't cover that. I know we need to get onto our bottlenose, but what do they eat?
Appreciate everyone's questions. Ask away. So for the big whales in our area, they're eating primarily on small schooling fish. So bay anchovies, silver sides, menhaden are a very important source for them. Also small croaker. So it's definitely important that we are monitoring the food sources for the animals as well, because a lot of things are going to feed in to that, and that kind of all ties in within the ecosystem and the food chain. Mom just asked, how far have the whales traveled that you guys are monitoring? All kinds of distances. They have feeding grounds up north in northern latitudes, Gulf of Maine, Gulf of St. Lawrence, Western Greenland, Iceland, Norway, Newfoundland, Labrador. And for the breeding grounds for these animals, breeding and calving tends to be down in the Caribbean Sea. Silver banks of the Dominican Republic are a really big and important area for them. And that's where a lot of our whales tend to head when it's time for them to kind of take care of business. All right. Christina, I know you have some thoughts on this. Why don't you weigh in on that one? Are the milder temps increasing their presence?
Well, I mean, my guess would be there's a few different factors going on here. I believe the humpback whale population is increasing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That we're aware of? Okay, so that's a factor. Milder temperatures would actually help to keep some of the bait fish and the different prey items closer to shore. I can remember back in the day when, as soon as we had that first cold, like really cold snap in January or February, the whales would just disappear. And that doesn't seem to be happening anymore. So yeah, there could be a few different factors at play, but I would imagine that milder temperatures will help keep them closer to shore, but as well as the increasing population. And, you know, Virginia Beach is just a really cool place to be anyway. So like, what whale wouldn't want to be here?
Right? Awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to some of the other favorites that folks get a chance to see. And this was taken one of our last whale trips that we had an opportunity to run with bottlenose dolphins. You can't look at this and not smile.
Right. He's smiling right back at you.
Exactly. I mean, you can see my face light up. I can't help it. But we are pretty lucky that we have bottlenose dolphins that we can see year round. So we do oftentimes get a chance to see them when we're out there looking at the whales.
Why are they always smiling, Alexis?
Because they love us. No, that's just part of their look. With the bottlenose dolphins, they're going to have that very prominent bottlenose or rostrum that gives them kind of that perma grin that everyone really enjoys seeing. And you can see with this next picture, this was also, everything has been taken this winter. They're smiling right back at us, and you can see a cute little squishy one right beside that. We have a calving ground here in Virginia. Peak calving season from what local researchers have found is end of May, early June, but we can spot those little cuties throughout the season. Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
I remember when it was a big deal that they were here in the wintertime.
Yeah.
It was very unusual. Now it seems like they are here year round.
They are. There are very few trips that we ran that, you know, we didn't see bottlenose dolphins, at least from a distance. So that's always a big treat for our guests with that too. Got another. Look at that face. So another little one that was seen, that was the same trip that we did with the others. And one of the questions we get a lot is, you'll see with that one dolphin that's right beside the little one, there's a little bit of a stringy substance that's kind of right there on the dorsal fin. And that's a soft barnacle called Balanus. Just attaches itself to hitch a free ride. Do we participate with Happy Whale? Yes, we do. We participate with a lot of those online catalogs. Happy Whale was something that is kind of newer within the last few years, but within the area, we work with local researchers, and we've been maintaining a database since the 90s. So we definitely do that as well. Cool. Oh, next one.
And that's a little, can you go back to that real quick?
Yes.
So there's a little baby popping up in there in the middle. And I can kind of see that white stripe across the back of its head. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Is that a little? You
are. You can still see the fetal folds with that particular individual. Again, that was kind of early March. During, June particularly, we see a lot of those little squishy ones. When baby dolphins are born, typically they're somewhere between 3 to 4 feet is the estimate. We see some that are smaller than that. They look like little footballs popping up out of the water. So super exciting to see that. And those first 2 to 3 months, you can see those white lines, fetal folds, that look kind of like tiger stripes. And that's from where they were folded up inside of mom. So the dolphin is going to have to carry her baby a little bit differently to make sure she stays nice and streamlined. So basically that little one's folded up right inside, and you can see those creases throughout this first couple of months. Yeah, good eye. You haven't lost it. All right. What do you think of these guys, Christina?
Oh, they're so beautiful. They are one of the most beautiful marine mammals out there, I think. Their coloration and just their behavior, I just love them. And you guys, I am so jealous. I've only seen them in the wild once, and we were on a research cruise way offshore. We were out in the Gulf Stream, and we saw a group of, I don't even know, hundreds, if not 1,000 or more. And that's how they travel. And yeah. Love these guys.
Yeah, these are common dolphins for anyone that doesn't know. And even though their name says common dolphins, for us to see them inshore, it's relatively uncommon. So we do get super jazzed when we spot them as well. Typically 1 or 2 times during a winter, during a whale trip, the stars will align and we'll have a chance to see it. This was that memorable sunset trip, but once again, that it will never be replicated with that. We were out there watching that whale that you saw the pictures earlier, being all kinds of crazy surface active, whales all around, crazy birds feeding. And then all of a sudden you see these dorsal fins coming at us. And I'm like, those are dolphins. They don't look like normal dolphins. All of a sudden they were completely surrounding us, coming over to the boat. They had babies with them too. So we got a chance to see that, but it was magical getting a chance to observe them, hundreds of them. Again, just right offshore of us here. They were feeding on small fish that you could see that the other animals were feeding onto. And it was just some crazy close-up views that we had a chance to see.
Talk about squishy.
I know. You're not supposed to be partial to things, but how can you not look at that face and melt? This is a harbor seal, and we do see more and more of the harbor seals and other species of seals in our area. So there have been determined to be designated haul-out locations for them. We collaborate with local researchers learning more about that too. But we did take a couple of designated longer trips to go out to see them. Most of the ones that we had an opportunity to see were nice and round. So they definitely have been eating very well. You can see that their blubber store is fantastic with those happy faces with that. And the next picture, you can see a little drool hanging out of that one's mouth. It really made me laugh. When we've seen them with fish in their mouth, particularly towards the Chesapeake Bay islands where some of them will hang out, we've seen them catching a lot of tautog, which is, definitely very interesting to note what their prey items are. All right, so we did have some other cool sightings with seals with that. So we can see 4 different species. Harbor are the most common, gray after that, and then 2 different types of ice seals, harp and hooded. There was a harp seal that was spotted down and a little bit further southern Virginia Beach, and also one a little bit later in Norfolk. So super exciting to see those ice seals coming through. Do you have a favorite seal story, Christina, from when you had a chance to work a little bit more closely with them?
Oh, boy, I tell you what, when we first started working with them, they were very unusual in this area, and we really didn't know a whole lot about why they were here, if they were sick or not. Are they here because they're sick? So we did in the beginning, we worked with a lot of them, and we also worked with a lot of wonderful organizations to the north of us that helped us, from New Jersey to Maine, and, all around New England Aquarium. And, just there was so much collaboration on trying to figure out why these guys were heading south the way they were. And now we know they were just expanding their territory, I guess. Favorite seal story? I think so when we were on, working for stranding, we were on call 24/7 for any animals that might be in distress. And one night, a friend of mine was on call, but her friend went into labor to have a baby. And at the same time, she was getting phone calls from a police officer in Norfolk and Ocean View that there was a very large seal on the beach. And it was right about the time all the bars were letting out. So she called me. She's like, "You got to handle this." So I get on the phone with the people on the beach and the police officer, and I could hear this poor animal in the background, like kind of making all this noise. And it was, it was just a sight to see. It turned out to be an adult harp seal.
Awesome.
And they just didn't know what to do with it. So I ended up at 2:30 in the morning running down to Ocean View to handle it. But yeah, they are fun, interesting animals. They are also very wild, and they have a mouth full of canine teeth. And so one of the most important messages I want to get out there is that if you do come across a seal, stay away from it. They are wild animals. They will bite, and keep your dogs away from them. They'll bite the dog too, and we don't need dog seal fights on the beach. So they are cool critters, though. They really are.
They are. And whenever you see, particularly in our area, one that is hanging out on a beach or hauled out, as Christina said, it's important to make sure that you maintain your distance away, but also give the local screening response folks a call. Oftentimes they'll come out and monitor the animal just to make sure that everything's okay with it. Again, it's not abnormal for them to be hauled out, but just to check on it. And as she mentioned, to make sure that folks are staying a little bit further away.
Yes. Yep.
We got one more kill. I know. All right, kind of gonna move in. We're running a little longer because you guys are asking us great questions. Which is
I know. And these are great photographs, I have to say.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite birds to see. It's a northern gannet. I like to say that it looks like someone painted them. You can see from the coloration kind of a gold wash on their heads, kind of blue-gray bills, a big blue ring around their eyes, and they're really big birds, about a 6-foot wingspan. We did see a lot of juveniles this year, which was kind of interesting for that. Another nice look at them. Super long and sharp beak here. And then you can see the next picture, one of our favorite. Yes. So raining gannets, and you can see, even though they're super big birds, they can make themselves nice and streamlined. They're what we call plunge divers. They can dive down from heights of sometimes over 100 feet into the air at speeds of 60 miles an hour. And their skulls are reinforced to make sure they can withstand that impact. But they're going to kind of stretch out those necks and tuck back their wings and basically hit the water like little missiles. So you can see this from a big way away. Justin, yeah. Gannets, yes, with that. And we did document insane amounts of gannets this year. We collect data on every trip with not just any whale, dolphin, seal that we see, but also birds. So we had over 21,000 gannets that we documented.
Wow.
That's probably a very conservative estimate for that too.
I always look for them when I'm on the boardwalk or on the beach, because that is a telltale sign that if you see diving gannets, there's fish around and there could be whales around.
Yes, definitely. That's definitely a good kind of word of advice for folks if you're looking for whales, and that's one of the things that we say, look for birds. They're going to feed on the same things. This next one is another one that's really become one of my favorites. It's a razor bill. You can see that they're absolutely precious, a little bit of a thicker beak. They're in the auk family. And some of the data that we have collected over the last 7 years actually helped to get their range maps changed for these animals. They were considered to be more of a rarity. And with our data, they changed those maps to show that they're here more normally during the winter time. And we documented 880 of those this year.
They are beautiful. I don't know if I've ever seen one.
They're gorgeous. Just like these guys, these are long-tailed ducks. Normally we'll get lucky and maybe see 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the season. We were jazzed to see a couple headed right out of the inlet at the beginning of winter. And then on those longer trips where we went to more places, we saw hundreds. So for the long-tails, we documented over 260 of those. And you can see kind of a nice picture here. And this next one is just amazing to me because it really shows the coloration of how beautiful they are, and where they get their name of longtail. Do you have a favorite winter bird, Christina?
Oh boy, I would have to go with the gannet. I mean, they are spectacular when you see those guys out there by the hundreds and they're dive bombing. And I mean, when you're far away, it just looks like a big cloud, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so awesome!" It's just beautiful. You shouldn't see them on the beach. You have to be in the water. They don't frequent the beachfront. They are a pelagic species, and they are pretty spectacular. And they have a 6-foot wingspan. Isn't that right? They're
huge. Is correct. They are. And another big bird, about the same wingspan, is this individual, and that's a brown pelican. This one is going to be what we would consider to be a mature adult that we saw. And pelicans used to be more notorious in our area during the warmer months, but we do see them year-round as well now, in addition to that.
And why is that?
They are going to follow their food sources. So wherever the food is plentiful, why are they going to leave? For migration in general, usually animals do that for a couple different reasons. One, to follow the food items to make sure that they have food. And then also if they need to go to a designated breeding or calving area, which is what we see with a lot of that. So for these brown pelicans, they do have a couple of different known breeding spots around here, and also tons of food. So they don't need to undergo those extensive migrations when everything they need is right here.
Yeah, we used to do turtle surveys over on the Eastern Shore, and they were boat-based surveys, and we did see a pelican colony for a few years over there on one of the islands, and it was pretty cool to see all the pelicans. Yeah.
I bet so. Did you get a chance to see any babies? I've never seen a baby one, but I think that they would be adorable. We
didn't get close because we didn't want to disturb them.
Right.
I'm sure there were babies in there.
Cool. And this next one is a really cool shot that actually Taryn took while we were out and about, and you can see kind of that nice pouch there. So how we talked about with the big whales, they can expand there. It's going to be the same thing with the pouches for the brown pelicans as well. And you can see that this one actually has kind of a fish tail kind of sticking out right here in the throat too. This would be a juvenile. We know that because of the coloration there. So kind of a contrast between the last individual, old white head, have that brown stripe down the back of the neck, and then this juvenile that you're more darker.
They can eat some pretty large fish too. They can get a lot of fish down that little gullet of theirs.
Yeah, definitely. That throat pouch can hold about 3 gallons of water, which is what they're doing. Go ahead, spring water out, and they're going to swallow the pouch. All right, so that's about the last picture that I have. Does anyone have any questions for us that you want us to cover before we wrap up? No?
Hi, Debbie. Hi, Kathy. So it seems we kind of touched on this a little bit about some of these critters. We've both been in this industry, business, this passion for more than a decade. And when I first started whale watching, you didn't see pelicans, we didn't see ospreys, we didn't see eagles, and barely saw whales. So we're seeing this wonderful increase, and we kind of talked about this, is that the populations are increasing, the food sources are increasing, and that's good news, right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
It is, definitely. One of the things that we want to keep in mind when we're out and about is kind of, as we touched on last time, making sure that, yay, we're getting lots of love. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Making sure that you are leaving things better than you found it. So marine debris is something that we see throughout our trips, throughout the waterways. I see it here at the dock. We see it when we're out and about, and Christina touched on that quite a bit last week too. So making sure that you're disposing of your trash items properly, doing what you can to kind of change everyone's habits for things along those lines. Those wildlife watching guidelines, I cannot stress those enough. That's another way that we can make sure that we're conserving these animals in their homes.
And those whale watching guidelines, or wildlife watching guidelines, really, that goes for more than just power boats. That's everybody. That's on foot. That's on a paddleboard, on a kayak, on a little boat. We have to keep our distance. You know, the definition of harassment is that that's my asparagus arriving from Cromwell Farm. The doorbell ringing. It's considered harassment when you change an animal's behavior. It's because you've done something that's disturbed their habit, and that can really change their habits in the long term if it happens often enough. So, even on a paddleboard, you got to stay away from it. And let's be honest, 800-pound dolphin lands on your paddleboard, you're going to need a new paddleboard, and hopefully you get off in time. We've seen those acrobatics,
Oh yeah. And another thing that folks don't always keep in mind is drones fall into this category too. So approaching an animal too closely with a drone, our policy is no, you cannot bring a drone on our boats or anything along those lines. All of those things come into play. So as you mentioned, just kind of making sure that folks are keeping in mind that it's not just the big boats that are doing that. Jackie, you're funny. But also, other things as well. There's our little
Jackie.
Awesome. All right, folks. So we've had a lot of people that have tuned in. We cannot thank you enough for joining us. This was kind of something that we tried last week. It went well. So we appreciate you joining us again. We're going to do this for the remainder of quarantine is our current plan. We'll see how long that goes. But let us know what you want to see from us. I know next week is going to be Earth Day. So we have probably something pretty cool lined up for that too.
Yeah, what do we want to talk about for Earth Day?
I don't know. You guys give us some suggestions.
That's 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks from now. I think we've decided on our Earth Day topic. So yeah, we need topic ideas. We've covered marine debris. We've covered winter wildlife. We'll be talking about anything conservation. So send us your ideas, your comments. This is fun. Appreciate y'all tuning in.
Yeah, definitely. And as we mentioned, we do have, a prize for everything set up. If any local vendors are watching, you want to partner with us, be included in that, definitely reach out to one of us. We love to have more local folks incorporated. So we're open to all kinds of suggestions. We do have 4 passes that I'm going to be kind of randomly drawing someone from this. I'll assign everyone a number that commented, that liked during our live feed, and we'll draw that out of a hat. And you get to come out on an eco excursion with us. I'll snail mail you guys. I know. I can't wait to get back on the water.
Yeah. So if you're on here right now and you're listening, make sure you've liked or commented so that we have your name and your contact information. And I'm excited. Someone's going to win 4 passes to go check out this wildlife. That's very cool. Thank you, Alexis and Rudee Tours, for doing that. That's a really big deal.
Yeah, thank you guys. All right, we're going to wrap everything up. We have taken a lot of your time. We had some great questions. We appreciate you engaging with us. And next Wednesday, we're going to do the same time, same place, 2 o'clock. And we'll have another topic that we'll roll out for you. Let us know what you want to see.
Yeah, go green. Woo-hoo.
All right. We'll end the broadcast. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Trying.
Leaving the studio.